we'll get into trade deadline stuff a little bit later. Um, but before that, we're just kind of take a look at kind of a broader picture. Look at the Canadian teams. Obviously, we're from Canada. Love talking about Canadian teams. There's this article, I believe, in the Montreal Gazette by Pat Hickey that asked the question: is this the year a Canadian team finally breaks the Cup curse? Now, obviously, that a Canadian team hasn't won the Cup in either of our lifetimes. Hasn't happened since 1993. So how many years is that by now? 30
Oh
something,
God, don't
31.
make me do math.
Um, I think I think it's 31, 2024. We haven't won a cup. I haven't had a cup in Canada in 31 years, and there's I'd say about four teams that have a legitimate shot to do it this year. And so we're gonna go through all of them, say what we like about them, say what we don't like about them, and kind of rank them based on how likely we think they are to break the curse. Um, so I don't know which one we want to start with, Simon, but
Um, well, I say why don't we start with Winnipeg? We can
all right.
start. That's more the most random one I think out of all the options. So, I guess we
Yes.
can start things off by just going, Caleb. What do you think about Winnipeg as a whole?
I think it's weird that they are doing as well as they are. Honestly, I think I very similar. I think the we'll talk about the Canucks later, but I do kind of think the Jets are just like a
A
smaller version of what's happening with the Canucks,
little
where
bit.
they were just kind of predicted to be either mediocre or not very good, and they've been like really good this season. I know the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade has paid off in spades for them, with a bunch of the pieces they've got from that, like giving them some great depth. Um, and they've made some good trades and getting former Flames at the trade deadline, getting in Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli. Um, Overall, like it's a pretty decent roster, especially with the moves they made at the deadline. Um, I still have a little bit of trouble trusting them. Um, I don't know. It does seem like it's a little bit fluky for them to be where they are. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I kind of get that. I actually think that comparison to Vancouver is very accurate because I think they are pretty much the same style of team where it's a very, very deep team. I think Vancouver has a bit more elite talent than Winnipeg does. But that's not to say
Yeah,
that
I would
Winnipeg
agree.
isn't just as deep of a hockey team. Like, I think if put in the right position, I think they can absolutely do a lot with what they have. I think they are absolutely not. A lot of teams in the western side should fear this Winnipeg team because I think they can shock. I think they have that shock factor to them. They have really good goaltending, they have really good defense, and they have people who can score in spades. And I think that'll help them out a lot. I don't know if you want to jump right into where both of us have them on our rankings out of all the Canadian teams' likelihood of winning the cup. But for me, I can tell you that I think that I have them third out of all the teams.
Yeah, them third. Okay,
Yeah.
I have them fourth. I have them dead
Okay,
last.
that's pretty much about where I thought both of us would put them. Where they're either going 3 or 4. I think there's one team that they're a little bit more interchangeable with, but the top two are pretty much undisputed. And I think it's
I think I have a controversial ranking probably, but
okay. Well, I don't know. I like Winnipeg as a team. Maybe it's because they have a couple former Flames on their roster. Maybe it's because they're good. But I don't know. When I look at their
I
roster, I think that they definitely have a chance to do a lot of shocking when the playoffs
I
do
think
come
the
around.
Halibut thing is the biggest thing. Like I think that makes up for a lot of your shortcomings in other places. Is having a guy like Halibut and he's probably going to win the Vesna, like he's playing at an insane level. Um, I think that makes up for a lot of shortcomings in terms of
It makes
not
it feel
having a lot of top
crazy.
talent on your team.
Yeah, it makes it feel crazy that we were talking about Hellebuck potentially leaving Winnipeg earlier this year.
Yeah. Yep. Him and Shifley, hey?
Oh yeah.
They're both potentially out the door. And now, I mean, it's worked this season. I still question it like a little bit in terms of signing them for as long as they did, getting like 8-year extensions. But it's worked out really well for them this year. They've been able to kind of reload on the fly. Because I don't know, did they didn't miss the playoffs last year, did they? They were still in,
Ooh.
but I'm
If they
if they
did,
were
I
in,
don't
they
even
were a first
remember.
round exit.
Yeah, exactly.
If
Whatever
they
they
did,
did
they
in the
were a first
playoffs, they
round
were
exit.
very clearly not memorable. And I think,
Yeah.
I don't know, I like this Winnipeg team. I think they absolutely. When I say I rank them third, it's mainly because the top two teams, or even just like the amount of talent we have in Canada right now is absolutely insane. I think that. I mean, we saw the insane tear both Edmonton and Vancouver have gone on over the last like little bit, and Toronto's always just been insanely talented. So I think, I mean, it's so tough to rank a team like Winnipeg when they've kind of popped out of nowhere, even a bit more than Vancouver. Like at least with Vancouver, it's felt like it's kind of been a long time coming with the amount of talent they have on their roster.
Uh,
Oh,
I don't
come
know. I
on.
think Vancouver was
They
more out of nowhere.
I think it was out of nowhere. I am not sitting here in front of you and telling you that I saw it coming. What I'm saying is that when you have Elias Pettersson and all of these Quinn Hughes, all of these insane players, you had to know that they'd have a good team at some point.
Yeah,
It's
I
more
don't know.
that like
You could argue the other way. The Jets were still making the playoffs and kind of making a push for the playoffs before this. It's not where Vancouver was never really doing that
that's
with its
fair.
core, at least, right?
Yeah,
That I think is something in their favor is that a lot of the players on that team do have playoff experience.
that's
Like
true.
I think that's going to
Yeah,
be a big thing because the
that's another
Canadian
reason that
curse.
this team could absolutely do something.
Yeah, the Canadian curse. I'll talk about this like more as we get onto the other teams too, but it's kind of just a smaller version of what's been happening with the Leafs since 1967, where it's
Yep.
just like the pressure gets to you, right? Especially in a 7 game series. And I think
You
being a
realize
Canadian
that it's
team
the
adds so much more pressure.
Oh, absolutely it does. Like even I mean, players even talk about like the difference in like fan bases you play in front of, right? Like Canadian
Yeah.
fans are fucking nuts. Like
Yeah.
because I mean, we all love our hockey teams and it's just when your team loses in the playoffs, it's devastating. Like especially like for me, I think back to when we lost against Edmonton, even though that was more of a slow burn. Like or the Ducks even like in that year in like the comeback Flames year in 2014 2015, that was devastating to see that team lose in the second round because it felt like they were destined to do so much that year despite really not having that much talent. Like it's stuff like that it makes it such a hard market to play in. I think for so many of these talented players, and makes absolutely in the playoffs it's amped up and makes it so much more difficult. And I think that absolutely is a factor as to why. I mean, at this point, it almost feels like it won't be broken, which is an
Yeah.
incredibly odd thing to say. But it almost feels like,
I don't I don't think any of these teams actually are.
yeah, like I hope one of them do. I hope Edmonton isn't the one, but I hope one of them do. I hope like but yeah, no, it's the type of thing where like I don't I mean, even just breaking it down, Toronto, no, Winnipeg, I I like what you got, but no. Vancouver probably I like their odds the best because I think they're very well balanced, but no. And Edmonton, no. Like it's none of these teams. They're really good, but I don't think they're playoff teams. If that makes sense, they're regular
Yeah.
season teams for the most part. I would actually argue that
Yeah.
Winnipeg is built for the playoffs. This is the type of team that really would excel in a 7 game series because of the amount
Because
of
of how
depth they
deep they
have.
are.
How much depth they have. Hellebuck will never. He is the perfect goalie for a long playoff run, and I mean their defense is pretty underrated. So I'm not.
I think. Well, I don't think they're a good enough team to win the Stanley Cup, but I do see what you mean in terms of like them being built for the playoffs in the specific way that I think that what was my point here? That they're gonna win. They'll win a couple rounds. They'll surprise some people. They'll go further than people think they will, but they won't win the cup. Like I think that's what they're built for. When you say they're built for the playoffs, that's kind of what I'm imagining in my head. Honestly, it's just like a couple rounds past where they should be, and I feel like they've done that before. But you can only get so far with just depth and not a lot of top end talent because it's Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and that's about it. And they're not even like the most
Mm,
fantastic superstars. Your
I think
superstars
I
are
think
net.
I yeah. I don't know. I think that's enough talent to win it with enough depth. Like I don't think their chances are impossible. I think they totally could do it. But
I mean, any team that gets a playoff spot can technically win. I just like think the odds are very stacked against them.
sure.
Like very.
All right.
There's a reason I have before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I when I look at this team, I think a good comparison is like. Although I will say I don't know if they quite have the defensive capabilities that these teams had, but I think like the Islanders teams that we saw for a couple of years in a row, where they went stupid far in the playoffs for like no reason. Like nobody could explain
Yeah.
what was making them so good. Like they had really, really solid defense. And while I don't think this Winnipeg team quite has that same level of defense, I think a lot of what makes them good is their offensive depth and their goaltending. But I think it's a similar kind of thing where you can't really put a finger on exactly what makes them so good, but they have so much of everything that it just works. Like it's one of those
Yeah.
things where it's almost like, yeah, I don't know. I like Winnipeg. I like Winnipeg a lot. I think they could absolutely be a conference team. Although the West is very, very deep this year, so they'll have a lot to deal with if they want to be. But I think they definitely have enough talent to surprise some of the better teams. But we can move on. Do you have a specific team you want to move on to here?
Uh, no. Where are you feeling?
Um, why don't we do Edmonton? We can
All right.
stay in roughly the same area and go Edmonton.
Same division,
Same,
or no, not same
not
division,
same
not quite
division,
yet. No,
whatever.
I was thinking we were talking about Vancouver. Nope. Edmonton. So I think, honestly, I think I'm about to make you mad, Simon. I'll just spoil my ranking right off the top. I think they are the most likely to win the cup if
Ooh.
anybody is going to. I think that I think a couple things. Again, this is all with the caveat that I don't think any of them are going to win the cup. I don't think Edmonton's going to win the cup. I think that they always get propped up as a team that can win the cup and then always fall flat on their face. But I think a couple of things. I think number one, they have the highest top end talent. I mean, that is something we've known for years. They have McDavid, they have Draisaitl. So with that, you can beat anybody. Their issue has always been their depth, and I think that's gotten a little bit better this year. I think that honestly, the fact that they had such a terrible start to the season helps them, and that they were able to actually fight through adversity and get to a place where they're building a better team around them. I think that really helps them as a team that's normally kind of just coasted by, gotten into the playoffs, and then got swamped by someone they were supposed to beat, or fallen in the. I mean, I guess it was never someone they were supposed to beat because it's like, oh yeah, they always lose to the people who eventually win the Stanley Cup. But I do think it's good for them to have faced that adversity. I don't know. I think that I generally like this Oilers team more than I have in the past, and I just think they have the playoff experience that Vancouver and Winnipeg don't have, and I just don't think I think they probably have a very similar level of talent that Toronto has, but Toronto is Toronto,
Yeah.
and predicting them to be the most likely to win the Stanley Cup feels like heresy. So that's why I put Edmonton number one.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm not
I
happy about
completely
it.
fucking disagree. Although to be fair,
Yeah.
I guess not by much because I have Edmonton second. But
Okay.
yeah, I have Edmonton second. But it's mainly because I think that I actually disagree with you. I don't like their depth a lot. I think especially like as you move further, like their winger depth I think is actually rather shit. I think they have really good center depth, but past that it's pretty depressing. I mean, it kind of depends on where they end up playing Adam Henrique, whether they play him at center or winger, but I don't know if it even necessarily matters. I just think that once you get down to the third or fourth pair, it gets a little depressing. The fact that Connor Brown is still getting decent minutes on this team just says wonders about what their depth has been like. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they're just the same Oilers we've seen over and over repackaged a little bit. Like they have a little bit of depth. They've got some decent people to pair alongside McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, what have you, right? But it's just I don't know. I could see them running. I think the West is even more powerful than they were last year, and by quite a bit. And I could see Edmonton being one of the teams that gets kind of surprised by a team they probably should beat. I think this is a team that a lot of people probably expect to do a lot. Like when you take the bias out of it, they absolutely have a lot of talent on it. They have a lot of you spoke on playoff experience from them. They have a lot of experience at losing in the playoffs. Like go through this entire
Yeah.
list. Go through this entire list and like who has won a cup here? Legitimately. I mean, Corey Perry. I think that's it.
That's probably it.
That
But
is
I
it.
mean, like losing in the playoffs is better than no experience at all,
Yeah,
right?
but I okay, yeah, that's true. But I
At
still
least
think
having some playoff experience. That's the one. That's the knock against Vancouver and Winnipeg is that they've literally never done it before. And it just reeks of, not to hurt you even more, Simon, but it reeks of that year that the Flames were first in the West and got their asses beat by the Avs, where it's just like you
yeah, okay,
think
I
you're
get
hot
that.
shit and then you get to the playoffs. I don't know. That's
I
why Vancouver and Winnipeg just feel like flukes to me. Like they don't even like feel like they're in the same kind of
But I mean, and
competition. They can surprise me, but
my next knock on Edmonton is again goaltending. They like I don't give a single flying fuck how good Skinner has been this year. He's not a playoff goalie. Like he's not the type of goalie who can go lights out and win it for you. And I just don't I don't know. When I look at this team, I just don't really see it as a I don't think this is their year. I still think they have more things to work on. I think you need to bring in more depth. I think you need to completely rework your goaltending. And then I could see this team going and winning it all. But I just don't think with the
yeah.
current core that they have, I don't think that the model that they have works in the playoffs. When you go that far
I
into June, I don't think it works.
and I don't necessarily disagree. I just think out of all of these teams, they are the most likely for something
Okay.
to
Well, I mean,
happen
at the end of the day,
because you
if
have
you
the two best players in the world. And I mean, to kind of fight back against your comments on the depth, I mean, yes, like the winger depth at a certain point is not great, and the fact they're playing Connor Brown is kind of fucking awful. But if you're looking at a first three lines, let's just say we switch out Connor Brown for Corey Perry, which in the playoffs they're going to do anyways, because Corey Perry is
that
even as old and not up to skill as he is now. He's a playoff type. He's a playoff player.
Oh,
Like he's
absolutely.
going
Yeah.
to outperform what he should in the playoffs. Are you going to tell me you don't like find it kind of decent to have a top three lines of Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Zach Hyman, Ryan McLeod, Liam Draisaitl, Warren Fogle, Evander Kane, Adam Henrique, and Corey Perry? That is not bad. Like
No,
that
it's
is
definitely
pretty
not.
decent depth. That fourth line,
That
that
fourth
fourth
line's
line is
just
kind of
dog.
shit.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
fourth line is depressing.
but
I mean,
the
they'd be a
the
three-line
thing with
hockey
like
team.
yeah, but that's better than when they were a two-line hockey team. I mean, like that's kind of the thing. It's like they have a little bit more depth than they did before because of guys like McLeod, because of guys like Fogle. Um, I don't know, and Henrique is another big one. I don't know. I do like this Oilers team a lot more than some of the previous ones. I'm not saying they don't have issues. I'm not saying that fourth line isn't dog shit. I'm not saying that Stuart Skinner is gonna like play lights out in the playoffs. It's just like if I was to put my money on any of them, I'd probably pick Edmonton. As much as that makes me not happy.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I have them second. I'm fighting against it because I do have a team above them and I don't actually think they'll win it. I honestly I think I only my number one team I think is the only one I could actually see potentially coming out on top. I think that they
Hmm.
absolutely at their worst I think they'd be a conference final. But I
Okay. Do you want to transition to that team?
sure. Let's talk about Vancouver. Because I think
Nah,
Vancouver is the team that you call them a fluke. I don't think they're a fluke. I think that they absolutely
I
have the
think
talent to
they're
do it.
I think they're totally a fluke. I have them at 3.
Wow. So you also have Toronto in front of them?
Yeah.
Holy. Oh fuck! I almost
Now,
spilled my coffee.
here
All right.
I'll let you give your reasonings for having them at first before
Okay.
I say
Sure.
my piece.
Yeah. We've seen it all season long with this team. They are absolutely insane. They are so well built, and they're so well coached at this point that they will. They are a very well oiled machine, and I don't see any reason other than potentially choking to be a good. And any team can choke in the playoffs. I don't think just the experience that they have is enough. I think, and I mean, if you were putting Toronto above them, clearly you're not ranking the chances of choking as something that you're too worried about. I think Vancouver is a lot better built than Toronto is. I've been saying that since the beginning of the year for Toronto. Like, sure, you can add all the physical guys you want to that Toronto squad. I refuse to believe that a team built by the son of the owner of Boston Pizza will ever be able to win a cup. And I don't know. I like this Vancouver team a lot. I mean, when you're playing Lindholm as your third line center, that shows how much depth you have. And I don't know. I think they absolutely have the chance to make an insane run. And I'm super excited for it. I think they're going to be the team that I'll be cheering for in the playoffs. More than in all likelihood, I think that'll be the case. Because I also think that in a situation where Vancouver goes all the way to the finals again and loses would be absolutely hilarious. So I'll
do live trick play reporting from the riots.
Yeah, it'll be great. Oh, holy! I think that. Why do you think they're fluky? I guess would be my question.
I don't know. The vibes are just so off. I understand that I mean, I've had this conversation all year. I didn't think it was real the first 10 games in. I didn't think it was real the first 20 games in. I didn't think it was real past that, but at a certain point I had to be like, well, I guess we're here now. I don't know. I mean, yeah, they've got good depth, and like looking at this roster, it's even better than I thought it was. I don't know. It's just such a the core of this team is not different from the team that we've been seeing. It's even worse, honestly, than some of the past Canucks teams we've seen. They get rid of guys like oh my god, what
Horvat.
Why? Yeah, Bo Horvat. I was thinking Besser. That's different white guy.
Besser's here.
Yeah, Besser's here.
Yeah.
But no, like they got rid of Bo Horvat, and it's like I don't know. I understand that they've been really good. Demko's playing out of his mind. I don't see like a ton of issues with the depth here. Their defense is
so it's
okay,
a vibe.
But they've got Quinn Hughes. Yeah, it's a vibe. I don't know. Like I can't point out any like real flaws. It just feels like the vibe just feels like a team that gets tossed in the first round. Honestly, I could see them very easily losing in the first round.
That's a fun
because
prediction.
you want to know. You want to know? Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna stake my claim on this. You know what? Because think about this.
Don't you dare do it.
I'm not gonna do that part again. I'm not gonna do that part again.
Your debt is getting high, sir.
My debt is getting high. At least my Stanley Cup prediction is still kind of valid.
Who did you? I don't even remember. Right, yeah.
I picked Dallas. That's looking actually good right about now. New Jersey, not so much.
Yeah, and my pick's not looking pretty.
But think about Vancouver's probably going to play in the first round. Who are they probably going to play in the first round? The lowest wild card team.
I mean, I don't have the standings in front of me, but like, Calgary. No, not really. Probably like
if it stays the way it does right now, which there's not that much time left before the playoffs, it's probably Vegas, right? A Vancouver Vegas series.
In the first
I'm taking
round.
Vegas. It is. I think if the season ended today, that's what it would be, right?
I didn't.
Because you've got.
That is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I'd honestly say Vegas, when they're healthy, is the best team in the West.
Yeah, they've been. It's because Vegas has just been slipping recently, and they're not in any real danger of losing their shot. But they're 3 points back of the Preds, who have that first wild card spot. If the Canucks are 3 points ahead of Colorado. If the playoffs started today, then it would be a Vancouver Vegas opening round. And if that happens, I think that my prediction of Vancouver getting knocked out in the first round is very realistic. If Vancouver plays like Nashville or somebody or like LA, like yeah, Vancouver will probably win. I don't know. Once as soon as Vancouver meets Vegas, I think that's when they probably meet their end. I just don't see anything
I would put their odds
happening
at
with them
beating
past that.
Vegas like. I think that is absolutely a game 6, game 7 type series. I I mean, I'd
Yeah,
probably put
yeah.
it like 60-40 in favor of Vegas. Like, I think they're better, but I do think that Vancouver absolutely does have, like, a fucking boxer's chance in that one. Like, I mean, I don't know. I like this team a lot. I don't think they're as fluky as you make them out to be. I just think, I do think Vegas is better. I'd be lying to you if I thought otherwise. But, I mean, fuck, I want them to do good. I think it'd be so funny. Like or
I do
imagine
too. I do too.
it would also be absolutely chaos if Vancouver lost in the first round. To be fair,
Yep.
it would probably
Yep.
be equal chaos. Well, maybe not equal, but it'd be close.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think that I guess this is also true for Edmonton, but I do think that's kind of a rough division to come out of, honestly.
Very true.
Vancouver, like the potential to play Vegas in the first round and then Edmonton probably in the second. That's pretty rough.
That is
Before then
terrible.
having
I
to
mean,
go
the
play
first.
maybe like the Avs.
Oh my god.
That's a pretty rough.
That is
a rough
brutal.
go.
I mean, and the Central isn't anything. They're not bad either. Like it's nowhere as good, but it's not bad.
Yeah. Anyways, do you wanna talk about our last team on the list that I
Sure.
have second and I think you have four, you have them fourth?
I have them fourth.
Okay.
Do you want to know
Okay.
why?
Because they're the Leafs.
Because I'll be dead 6 feet in the ground before Toronto wins a fucking cup.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I've got to look at this a little bit more objectively just to say
What
like,
about this
yes,
Toronto
this team
team compared to the team that lost in the first round 5 or 6 years in a row is any different or better?
the fact that they didn't lose in the first round last year.
Yeah.
I think
But-
that I think mentally that means a lot more than you might think.
Oh, absolutely. It does.
Because that was the monkey off the back, right? Because I mean,
Is it, or is it laying the expectations on more?
No, I don't think it is. I think that because I think the issue with last year's team is that they won in the first round and that was their Stanley Cup. And then they got ambushed by a Florida team that they thought they were way better than because they won in the first round and they got their asses handed to them. I don't think they're going to go into this with the same expectations because
We
now it's
want
not
Florida.
just like
We want Florida.
yeah, that was so stupid. I don't think they're gonna. I have a little bit more faith that that team isn't gonna go into this. They're not gonna go into this being like, oh, we just need to win the first round. We just need to win the first round. That's the monkey off the back. They won't have that anymore. And I think they will be. They won't be so high off their own supply after winning a single series that they kind of get their feet knocked out from under them. I think if any Leafs team has the like correct mentality. I think mentality is so much about the Leafs because that any like curse, right? It's all mentality. Because none of that shit is real. It's just like the pressure of not having won a cup in 1967 since 1967 and the biggest hockey market in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's that pressure. It's the mental side of it. And I think if there's any Leafs team that is more equipped to handle that mental side of it, it's this team. Just because they've been around so much and they finally got that singular monkey off the back. I'm not saying I think they're going to win because I think that then as soon as they get to the Cup Finals, if they do, an even bigger monkey on the back comes there, and it's like, oh, 1967, and then they probably shit the bed there because that pressure is going to be fucking insane if they're playing. Like think of it like a fucking like Toronto Dallas, like fucking Stars aren't like Stars fans. Dallas isn't going to be lit on fire if they lose, right? There's a difference in pressure and difference in expectations. But I think I think they have a better chance than Vancouver or Winnipeg.
If they lose in the Stanley Cup,
team.
If they lose in the Stanley Cup, they're sending Austin Matthews to the fucking Coyotes for a 7th round pick. Like that's the expectations that these players are basically living under. Where it's like it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. It's just The second
Yeah.
you get into the playoffs with these fans, I mean, you know what the expectations are. I mean, I don't know. I fully think I'm not saying that they're a first round exit. That's not. I think it'd be really funny, but I don't think they are. I think they'll probably go like 2 or 3 rounds deep, and then they'll probably fall. I just don't think that they're a team that, as a whole, I've never been able to buy into what the Leafs have done with their core, and I don't think the fact that the monkey is off their back is enough to really change that for me. I think teams over the past 6 years, all they have shown, even if it is because this team has choked, has shown that they can beat this Leafs core, no matter how talented it is. I don't think that changes this year. I think there's a lot of very talented teams in the East that could absolutely dismantle this Leafs team. And I don't think Austin Matthews scoring a goal a game will be able to change that.
To that point, and against my own point, looking at the standings, it looks like the Leafs will play one of two teams in the first round. One of them you hear and say, "Oh no." The other one you'd hear and say, "Oh, they're fucked."
Please be Bruins.
The first one being the Florida Panthers, a rematch of last year. That's kind of scary for them. I don't like that at all. But what I like even less is the other one, Toronto Boston.
Yeah!
Oh my god.
Let's do it again! Oh, that'd be so funny. I hope that happens. That is awesome.
If the playoffs started today, that would be the matchup.
That is so awesome. I love that. I hope it happens. Yeah. I hope it happens. Boston, keep sucking. We need to see it. Oh, God. Yeah, the Florida series would be good, too. It wouldn't be as good, but it'd be good.
At least the rematch of last year aspect of it would be
it'd be a good series. I think Florida beats them as well. Like, Florida is absolutely one of the teams in the East that I think would beat this Toronto team.
If I was to redo my rankings, I would move Toronto down, not because I disagree with any of the points I made, but that competition is insane. That Atlantic division is tougher than anything else.
Well, they're not beating Boston. Simple. Like, they're not. I don't care what monkey is off their back. They're not beating Boston. And Florida.
Well, that's an additional monkey.
Yeah, that's an additional monkey. You're stacking the monkeys.
The Leafs have multiple monkeys at this point. The Leafs killed one of the bigger ones.
Listen, it's a whole zoo. It is a whole zoo on their back at this point, and that Boston monkey is absolutely insane. That Boston monkey is actually a full-grown gorilla at this point. So I don't think they're beating Boston no matter what happens. I don't care if they're up 7-0 in the second period and about to complete a sweep. Boston will come back. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Boston is inevitable when it comes to Toronto, and Florida, I'd give them a fighting chance, but Boston, not in 1,000 years. Put the house. I don't care who's hurt for Boston. I don't care like what ranking they have been all season long. They're beating Toronto, and it's not close. Well, it could be close, but it won't be close at the end.
I'm just gonna keep this clip just in case. Just in case. Mark this moment.
Well, my absolute no faith in Toronto, I don't think that has changed in however long. No. I've stuck with my guns. If Toronto wins the cup, I think I owe a lot of people apologies. So
probably, yeah.
Yeah. I feel fairly confident in that, though.
Yeah. So well, if we want to wrap up, what were your final rankings?
Final rankings were Toronto number 4 because they're Toronto. Number 3, I had Winnipeg, just not necessarily as an indication of how talented I think they are. I just mean look at the top 2, and that pretty much explains it. Number 2, I have Edmonton, and then number 1, I have Vancouver.
Okay. Then I have Winnipeg at 4, Vancouver at 3, my fluke teams. Then I've got Toronto at 2, Edmonton at 1. Not saying that, I don't know. Those are 4 pretty good teams. Again, I don't think any of them actually have what it takes.
Like I said before, I think the only team that I could actually imagine winning the cup is Vancouver. But even then, with how dumb the West is, it's going to be a very tough road for them. So they'll have
Yeah.
to do a lot of impressing. But I mean, if any of the teams can pull off the amount of upsets that they'd have to, it probably is Vancouver. Because I mean, Toronto would have to beat Boston and then whoever the hell monster they'd face in the second round. Like it'd be ugly for Toronto, and God, it would get to their heads so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't believe in that Toronto team at all. I mean, no matter how much talent they have, they've had that much talent for 6 or 7 years at this point. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel fairly confident in my rankings. I wish I could put Winnipeg higher because I really like that team, but I don't know. They run into the same issue of just like how insane that fucking Western side is across the board.